Welcome to Nonprofit Nerd Impact Unleashed, where conversations are designed for nonprofit leaders by nonprofit leaders to inspire, educate, and motivate. Get ready to dive into the world of nonprofits where the nerdy passion and unstoppable dedication of those making a real impact is celebrated. Together with your host, Jarrett Ransom, the inspiring stories, tactical insights, and game-changing strategies of nonprofit leaders will be explored. Join us for real talk with real people. Jarrett and her guests unravel the mysteries of successful fundraising, uncover the secrets of effective advocacy, and nerd out over innovative approaches to solving social challenges. Nonprofit Nerd Impact Unleashed is your go-to podcast for no-nonsense discussions with real-life superheroes of the nonprofit sector. Get ready to unleash your inner nerdiness and discover or rediscover how to change the world together. Now let's dive in and embrace the power of our nerdy side.
Welcome back, my fellow nonprofit nerds. I am so glad you're here for another conversation designed to help you lead with confidence and strengthen your organization's impact. Today, I'm excited to welcome Malika Hodge to the conversation. Malika is founder and CEO of Human Centered Leadership Collaborative. That is a mouthful, but Malika is truly an expert in organizational health and leadership. She helps mission-driven organizations build stronger workplace cultures by understanding power dynamics, designing healthier systems, and developing leaders who create environments where people can thrive. That sounds amazing, don't you think? So in our conversation that you are about to hear, we explore why so many organizational challenges actually begin with leadership mindset before they show up in relationships and organizational systems. We also discuss the importance of psychological safety, authentic connection, and the role every leader plays in creating a healthy and resilient workplace culture. And before we dive into this rich conversation, I'd like to thank our friends at Bloomerang for their continued partnership and sponsorship. Your support helps make these conversations possible, bringing nonprofit leaders practical insights and real-world strategies to better serve their missions and communities. Now let's jump into my conversation with Malika Hodge. Well, hey there, everyone, and welcome back. I'm really excited because today's guest is a phenomenal person that I've recently been connected to. Shout out to our mutual friend, Erica Scott. We have had several conversations now, but Malika joins me. Malika, welcome. Malika Hodge, I should say. I want everyone to know your last name as well. First of all, thank you for saying yes and showing up as your true, authentic self for this conversation.
Thank you for having me, Jarrett. So yes, it's been such a blessing, like learning from you, being in your space, and now being able to like share this conversation as well with the masses. So excited to be
Yeah,
here.
I am excited, and I have had some wonderful conversations with you already. So let's like open that up a little bit for our audience because they might be new to you. Maybe you've got some fans that have found this episode, but maybe there's some new people. Kick us off. Tell us a little bit about you, Malika, and your work that you do in the nonprofit space.
Yeah, so I consider myself, most of my career, I have been like a nonprofit girly, with the exception of a small stint. And nonprofits always seem like the natural point because I was like, well, I know that I want to do work that has purpose, right? And so nonprofits is like, that's where I want to be. Like, I understand the mission. It helps me feel like I'm making a living while also serving in a way that's bigger than myself. And often communities like where I'm from, like I'm from the Bronx. I grew up in the largest housing project in the Bronx in Eden Wall, and I want more people to have the opportunity and choice, right? For it not to be left up to chance or to if someone thinks you're smart enough, right? And so mission-driven work is really my heartbeat, I say in theory, right?
Yeah.
But as I have experienced it living in my body, I'm continuously seeing patterns. I'm noticing patterns that you've experienced, I've experienced, and I'm like, wow, there's something bigger here going on. So a lot of my work is focused on helping mission-driven organizations understand power and structures and dynamics, and really thinking intentionally about systems design work that help to promote human-centered systems because I really do believe people are the heartbeat of all work, but especially mission-driven work.
That is a great way to start this conversation. We're going to dive deep. It's going to get juicy. Like you've already level set some things here. So thank you for sharing, Malika. And, when you are working with organizations, you're helping them create healthy workplaces. What does creating healthy, safe workplaces and productive outcomes, because we also need that mission driven, we can't do this left by chance. Like, well, maybe that will just be the end goal, right? So, what does this organizational consciousness actually mean in practice for these nonprofit leaders that you have the privilege of working with? And they're trying to move from intention to action, right? Like, there's a lot in that. I myself, when I do my best to embody this, I still am human and I often default into like get stuff done versus all of the things that go into it. So can you kind of unpack what creating this environment might look like in practice?
Sure. I think a lot about this, and I do think one, first, I don't have all the answers. I don't think there's like one quick fix. I think this is really a process. I think that's part of what holds people back because sometimes by the time they're looking for help, they're like, I just need you to fix this thing. And because so much of this matters so deeply, like relational.
Yes.
And furthermore, I find that what's most important is how leaders think about leadership. So I've been dealing with a wide breadth of clients that are on opposite sides of the spectrum. And I'm like, where's the healthy area, right? Where it's like sometimes they're really, really strict and harsh with their leadership style. Like there's no questions, you do what I say. And then the opposite end, well, I want everybody to feel like they have a voice here and they can design what they want to do. And I feel like either of those two ends is really harmful. So first, understanding that leadership is a role that you're getting paid to do, right? It's okay to take ownership and to think about what does healthy ownership look like of leadership, right? A lot of times I find that at the root of this, leaders are afraid of mimicking practices that they didn't like themselves. And so they go to the far extremes as opposed to looking at this and being like, okay, like what do people actually need? And I think organizational consciousness is about one, understanding that leadership is a practice that needs to be acknowledged because mindset shapes systems, right? And systems then shape relationship. And so, constantly having that self-reflection around what is leadership? Are people leaving me, when they leave interactions with me, are they more confused than they are clear? Because if we find that they're more confused, sometimes that is you're not saying enough or you're not clear enough about what you're trying to get me to do. Because ultimately, you do need to look at leadership as stewardship. Because I've seen organizations be able to fundraise money, but then you look at their Glassdoor and their Indeed reviews, and there's so much turnover. So although they're raising all this money and seeing like they're hitting these goals, people are leaving the organization at a quick rate where they burnt out. And that's
Mm.
costly. That's a revenue problem in my mind because then you have to hire people again, right? You got to fix your reputation because things with social media is so public now, so people can speak out and
Yeah.
say, look what's going on in there. Don't come over here, right? And for a mission-driven organization, that's really detrimental. I think the greatest marketing you can do is making sure your people feel good.
Wow. I mean, I feel like we could stop this conversation there and have a mic drop on like the biggest thing you can do is make your people feel good. And Malika, as I close my eyes, and I know many of our listeners can't see me, right, unless they're watching YouTube. As I close my eyes and I think of that, and you know this about me, but I'm currently in my 12th interim position in like executive leadership, and psychological safety has come up probably 100% of the time in these interim positions, right? There's transition change, there's systems change, there's leadership change, there's process, like there's just change. The only constant is change, right? Um, So when you talk about building safety and health through intentional, interpersonal, and I'm assuming structural, right? Like
Yes.
practices, where do most organizations tend to fail first? At the
Mhm.
relational level, the systems level, or the leadership mindset? What are you seeing, and like why do you think that that's happening that way?
I think the leadership mindset, at first I thought this was a systems level problem because I am a public
Okay.
health person. I see the workplace as an ecosystem within itself that is really a major social determinant of health, that we don't speak enough about because work is your trajectory to being able to provide your livelihood and provide pathways to economic mobility. So I think this is like a really important discussion. But yeah, the leadership mindset first, because first you have to see yourself as you are a leader. That's get what you're getting paid to do. You're getting paid to steer the ship. You're getting paid to role model. You're getting paid to sharpen, right, folks at your organization and skill them up, which is something that I think a lot of mission-driven organizations forget. Um, I feel from the mindset, because I actually have a LinkedIn newsletter called Head Tilt, and a lot of and the tagline of it is shifting perspectives before systems. And I think really understanding and thinking about, okay, what's my responsibility here? Right? And although change is a constant, what are some of the anchors of stability that I can provide for my people? Because when people are feeling constant turbulence, and I'm actually like moving in my chair right now, when they're feeling this constantly, it's almost impossible to feel psychologically safe, to
Mm,
feel innovative. You're gonna be dealing with burnout. People are going to be scared and afraid. And so I'm assuming too, like when you go into an organization, you want to establish some level of stability in all the newness. And I think people and leaders, I should say, often leave this to chance. They're like, okay, like I'm here and I'm mainly bringing in the money, but at the organizational level, managers haven't been trained. There's no orientation after after you're done dealing with the HR folks. There's no orientation to set you up for success. Um, there is no sort of intentional team dynamics because what we do know even about in-person work, especially for historically and presently more marginalized folks like myself, is that just because you're in space with people and you're seeing each other every day, that's not enough to glue an organization in a way that's healthy. There has to be a level of consciousness and expectation. And so I really see this work and see leadership at at mission-driven organizations as you provide the house as a leader, and I'm coming into the house. You're outlining the expectations so that I can participate, right? So if you want me to be a part of this community, what do you want me to do? Right? Because I think when you give people a foundation, then it allows them to know what to do and also to start to step up on their own, right? It gives that
right.
space. And so I think about, again, this being a revenue problem when we don't think about people because
Yeah.
what is it? Like the research shows like 15 to 20%, right, of a person's annual salary is spent on their like replacement, right? And so like
Right.
it's really costly to go through a hiring process and to go through
Mhm.
an onboarding process. So you're investing in people, they're investing in you. And so we want to make this work, right? We want to make sure the risk assessment looks good. And I think
Yeah.
we're forgetting that in a world that's highly public now around sentiment as well.
You know, there's another statistic in particular the fundraising world development, right? Where a development professional stays up to 18 months, right? Like 16 to 18 months is kind of like the tenure of a development professional. So you can imagine this person gets in, they just start to get their feet underneath them. They start to know the donors, the supporters of this, organization. And then before you know it, they're gone and another face, another person is coming in, and there's just a lot of this transition for the entire ecosystem, right? Like the team, the volunteers, the donors itself, the communities in which it serves, like there's just a lot.
Yes.
So I appreciate that, like, this is your area of genius, your zone of genius. As I said before I hit record, like, you just ooze so much passion in this space. And I know our listeners are, feeling that. I want to ask you because I often hear this healthy workplace culture. And
Hmm.
I think when nonprofit leaders hear this too, healthy workplace culture, right? Maybe it's perceived as being soft or secondary to results, right? So,
Right.
how do you, Malika, connect the psychological safety and engagement directly to outcomes? Maybe it's outcomes of like performance,
Yes.
maybe it's innovation and that revenue that you talk about, and we know that we all need. So, how do you connect all of this and make it work in, like, I don't know, the best reality that we want to create?
I think several things. When people first come, some people, when they come to me, they realize they have some sort of a problem. They oftentimes, when you're going into an organization as an external change agent, what they call you in for is seldom what the root of the issue is,
Yeah.
right? And I find to build trust and relationship, I'm like, okay, let's take care of that first. But as I'm taking care of that, I'm seeing that there's all this stuff underneath, right? There's like a pattern here that's not productive and useful because, like, as you just said, people are leaving the organization or people are burnt out or dragging their feet. There seems to be a lot of miscommunication. So you notice that there's a lot of delays. I notice the communication problems are not just small things, right? There's a lot of bottlenecking that happens too at mission-driven organizations. And then we point fingers. And I think
Yeah.
this comes back to psychological safety is important because you need to shift mindset to understand that it's incredibly important as a leader. You're taking ownership of building an ecosystem. That is what you're being paid to do, or part of what you're being paid to do. And then on top of that, if you want to build an ecosystem, you need to think about it at the systems level, right? Again, you cannot leave it up to chance for this to happen. So oftentimes it's funny because when I come in, people are like, oh, psychological safety, that sounds soft. And then I'm like, but I want us to think about systems redesign. And that's when people are like, well, you start to see people's perception of leadership sort of come up there. It's either, I don't really do systems. I don't want to make people feel like we're controlling them. So
Yeah.
systems being perceived as control, right? Because in order to shift this so-called soft skill people are seeing as psychological safety, you really need to start shifting the way you do things because it's a behavioral shift and change. And the hope is that you're going to be generating more revenue, right? That people are going to stay longer, that they're going to be generating more ideas, right? And so you want to see people feel grounded when they're at work and feel clear. They're not always going to like what you do. I'm not saying that. What we're trying to say here is everybody needs to feel really happy and like they're going to a county fair when they go to work, right? Like, that's not what I'm saying. But what we don't want to
Yeah.
continue to see is there's this normalization, almost like people are like, oh, who likes their job, right? Everybody hates their job. Jobs are
Right.
toxic. Like, people, that expectation now.
I was going to say that pit you feel in the stomach Sunday night, knowing that Monday morning is coming, or,
Right.
worst thing ever. So, if any of you are doing this, you're going to know this is like the epitome of hell for me. And then you have a Monday morning, 8 a.m. all staff meeting. Like, that to me is just the worst. Like, I don't know. I've seen that. I definitely try to switch it. I think there's so much here. And I can only imagine, like, I mentioned earlier, Malika, I am human. We're all humans, right?
Yes.
Having this experience in the world, there's so much changing. We're not even talking about AI and technology, but clearly that plays a role
Mhm.
into all of this as well. So, if there's a nonprofit leader, which I'm sure there is many of them that are wanting to begin, right, strengthening organizational health as they hear your conversation and they hear us having this dialogue, maybe they want to do this immediately. They're now thinking, you know what? Yes, what Malika and Jarrett are talking about, we definitely need to address this here within my mission driven organization. Can you give us like 2 to 3
Mhm.
practical, practices or even interventions that you would recommend a nonprofit leader, right? Once we like really own and embody this leadership title, maybe we can implement, right? The next 30, 60 days. Is there anything that you could leave us with today?
Sure. There are three things. So I think about one, the mindset's really key and important. So reflecting on, all right, how do you see leadership? How do you promote healthy communication and role model that in your practice, right? What are you noticing? I asked that question earlier too, like, do people come away with more clarity or more confusion? Are we noticing that
Right.
people are spinning in circles? Teams are spinning in circles because you seem to be unclear about something. And sometimes that unclarity too is from not taking ownership too as a leader and saying, actually, this is what I need you to do. Right? I'm very
Yeah.
be very clear as you can because it helps people. I think the other thing you just mentioned, we spoke about the Sunday scaries, right? You're feeling
Mm-hmm.
on Sunday morning like I really don't want to go to work, and then I have to see everybody's face on Monday morning, and that's really hard. What I'm finding is a lot of times all staffs, whether they're done remotely or in person, are not sufficient enough to make people feel a sense of connection and clarity for the week.
Sure.
And I think one of the biggest issues that we're seeing across the board is that there's not a lot of cross-department collaboration. People don't know who's there. People are feeling very isolated, even when they are working in person. So one of the things I
Yeah.
tell leaders, I'm like, get into this practice because leadership, so much of leadership is practice. Get into this practice. If your organization is 50 people or under, there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to meet a representative sample or maybe even everyone for 10 to 20 minutes sometimes, maybe 20 minutes max, and get to know them, understand their vantage point, build relationship. I think that's
Yeah.
so golden. I've seen great leaders be able to have relationship that feels authentic with the people that they work with. And automatically people are more bought in, especially when it's feeling like it's coming from a place of genuine like curiosity and wanting to shift something. Right. And if you're
Yeah.
at a larger organization, can we think about doing this? Maybe again, you're getting representatives from the different departments and not
Mhm.
forgetting that frontline voice. I think this is
Right.
the time in the time to flip your organizational chart. Oftentimes the frontline workers have so much insight and they're
Yes.
so far from the decision-making table.
Yes. Yes.
And I think if we can get into the practice as leaders, because we're making decisions about a whole organization, so are we understanding all the vantage points, right? Do we have enough insight? And making that a practice, because then it's multi-directional learning, you're building relationship as well. Also surfacing new ideas are coming up as well. The other thing is the practice around leadership across the organization. Can you be clear about the 2 to 3 behaviors that you want to see every people leader demonstrate?
Yeah.
What are those things, right? Ideally, you want to be role modeling those things. I know some leaders have like a chief of staff, for example. So maybe they're not doing people management all the time, but for anybody who's in a higher level role and they're dealing with people, we can't have some people doing stuff over here and some people doing stuff over there. I think it's really important for people to feel a sense of connection, making sure that you're having the managerial one-on-ones, but also if you're having team huddles with people, with your team, right? You're creating
Yeah.
space for people to feel to again to understand the rules of the house so they can come in and they can also start to take co-ownership with you. But if you don't provide that, people spend so much time, as you mentioned, Jarrett, so much time just trying to figure out their role. Like you just gave the
Yes.
statistic of people leaving, what is that, 18 months, you said? 18 to 24?
Months. Yeah.
So it's just
18.
like,
Yeah.
so if we don't have connection, I don't know what to do. There's no nexus points here where
Yeah.
we can constructively connect, can discern, can surface ideas, to troubleshoot. I've just spent a year frustrated, and then I'm already trying to pivot into a new role, and it keeps going.
Right. Right. Wow, you're so generous. Practical practices, interventions we can do right now within the next 30, 60 days. I'm sure there's so much more, Malika. So for people that want to learn more about you, your company, the services you provide, we know you live in New York. I know you work across the nation.
Yes,
tell
yes, yes.
us, how people can learn more about you and connect with you. Um, where do you want us to go? Website, LinkedIn, what works
Yeah.
best?
LinkedIn's the primary, so you can find me at Malika Hodge, MPH. I have a newsletter, an active newsletter on LinkedIn. I also post tons. Thanks to
Yeah.
Jarrett reminding me to do that about leadership. I talk a lot about leadership literacy. And what I mean by that is what are the skills that help people to understand how organizations work and making sure that people understand that at all levels. It shouldn't just be reserved for leaders because you want to steward leadership across your organization. And so, working as a consultant, helping to build very customizable systems-based practices for organizations to help the organization go culture, which leads to revenue shifts and changes, is something that I'm like really passionate about. Furthermore, you can find me on my website, hclead.org. But again, I'm most active on LinkedIn and I do work across the nation. I have a specialty in working with hybrid and remote teams as well. But yes, it's fantastic to just be able to do this work, to talk to leaders like you, Jarrett, to talk to people who are starting to tilt their heads a little bit and question things and trying to figure out where do we go from here? If this doesn't feel right, I think the response is not to just say, well, this is the way it's always been done. No, let's lean on a little bit more and start to think about what we can do because people, I believe, are our biggest asset at mission-driven organizations.
I could not agree more. Yes. Okay, one final question. What is a takeaway you would want other leaders listening to this right now, today, to know? What do you want to leave them with, Malika?
Yeah, I want to leave them with knowing that there's something that can be done. Even if you're at an organization, it's been 20 years of something that's we've been seeing something the same way. There's always an opportunity to start to shift. Um, and when we invest in our people, we owe it to them to start to shift things because I promise you, it will come back, right, to benefit everybody, including
Mm.
making your life a lot easier as well. Right. And so I think every person should leave organizations better than they came in.
Absolutely. Well, what I hear is don't give up hope. And I also hear the great opportunity for our listeners, today, Malika. If this is for you, take it and really lean into what you
Yeah.
hear. If this is for someone else, please share it with them. Connect with Malika. There's so much work that she can help with. I know you can help with. I've heard you do it. And again, I feel leaders, we have the obligation to have these conversations, right? To ask what else can be done, to tilt our head, to scratch it, to say, I think there's a different way, right? So thank you, thank you, thank you, Malika. I know we are merely scratching the surface into this really big conversation, but I appreciate you going there with me. And I appreciate, again, you saying yes to the conversation. You're fantastic.
Of course. Thank you so much, Jared. Thank you all so much for listening. And yes, reach out. I love to continue conversation.